on my while I was riding pins on. I just had my phone and and earbuds in, and that's how I recorded it. And
That's awesome.
It didn't turn out too bad, so I did a whole bunch of them like that. But it just after a while, I think the novelty wears off of hearing cattle in the background, and it's a pain to edit later on. So now I've got this little kind of studio space now, so it's pretty cool.
You got to get a ram mount for your saddle horn, you know.
I know. Yeah. Get like the little the foam soundproofing deal that sits out in front. I can't see a fucking thing where I'm going, but there we are. But well, folks, I've got a fella from just outside of Portland, Oregon. He took the night of protesting off so we could talk about farm-to-table meat consumption. A fella named Andrew Turner is known as at Farm Butcher on Instagram. If you don't follow him, you should. It's a really cool, really informative page. And other than that, I don't know much about you, buddy, but I like your page, and it fits a lot right into some of the stuff I've been kind of pounding the table for, that us on the agricultural end of the spectrum kind of need to get on board with, like, kind of how the market's changing and whatnot. But I guess so. You have a mobile slaughterhouse that you operate. So I guess just introduce yourself and let's a little bit about your outfit, because I'm excited to hear about it. So I'll shut up.
No, it's all right. Yeah, so I purposefully try to keep it a little bit dark on the social media, just because I've dealt with a bit of the flack from anti-animal agriculture folk before, and we can get into that a little later. But yeah, so I run a mobile slaughter service, custom exempt, in just outside of Portland, and all my customers are, for the most part, I would say they're doing it for tax reasons. So a lot of people raising animals like on their small 2, 3, 4 acre parcels.
Okay.
And then they get their farm tax deferral or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And then they get their own freezer filled for, break even cost. They're not making a ton of money on it, if maybe just a little bit. But that's kind of the cool thing about this side of Oregon too, is it's so lush and green and temperate that, unless you're really pushing your ground, you don't have to supplement a lot of feed. And I'm talking mostly cattle. Pigs and sheep are less of my business.
Okay.
Sheep the least, and pigs probably second. But so you can run on a 2 acre patch of good ground with good grass. You might only have to hay 2 months out of the year, if that. So yeah, a lot of them are just doing it for the tax reasons, and I provide just the slaughter service. So for those unfamiliar, I'm just basically going out and butchering these animals that are for the owners. So that could be someone who owns a quarter, or owns a half, or owns a whole. And then I take it back to the cut and wrap facility, and they cut it up there. I just deal with the farm slaughter side of things, and that's the way I like it, truth be told.
You do all the dirty work for them, and
totally.
Hell yeah. So so you take like a reefer truck out there, and you got a bunch of winches and stuff. Do you use captive bolt, or do you use like a 22?
So it's just, all it really is a stainless steel box with a winch on the back. There's no refrigeration or anything like that.
Okay.
It's cool enough here pretty much all year. We start early, and then this time of year I have to be back at the shop by like 1:30 or 2.
Okay.
And for most people, like, I started under federal inspection, doing federally inspected slaughter, where it's all refrigerated like almost the whole time.
Yeah.
And it kind of freaked me out. But if you think about like how people do their game animals, deer and elk, like, they're not going straight into a cooler. You just have to get it cold within 24 hours, all the way to the bone.
Yeah.
And like on a big fed steer, like market steer or whatever, which truthfully I don't see much of. That can be tricky, so we try to schedule that out for end of the day, so it goes right in the truck and back to the cooler.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, I used my captive bolt gun that was gifted to me from a customer for the second time this year, and I've been in business for almost 10 years.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so everything else is 22 mag, 223, 243 if they're real naughty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and every day is different. I've got some customers that I'll show up and they'll have 4 to 6 in a pen. We just walk up, drop all 6, get to work. Or some like yes, well, a lot lately, but they're like they're out there.
That's handy.
Yeah. So you're like, are there any distinctive features? Like, the only steer. Oh, all right.
That's just real handy of them.
I'm just looking for dicks through my scope, and once I see one, I know that's my guy.
Yeah, just scanning for cock. Oh, that's funny. So what's the typical, like, what do you do with when you gut it and everything? Do you have to take that somewhere, or you just like bury it, or what?
Yeah, so typical day for me, I park at the shop that I deliver to, and then we'll leave there at like anywhere from 5:30 to 6 in the morning, depending on how far we have to go for our first stop. And we could have anywhere from 1 stop to 5 stops in the day, and the animals just being like the old McDonald's farm.
Yeah.
You know, like a little bit of everything. Show up to the first farm, get however many animals that were there for dead, bleeding out, winch them to the truck. I have a helper that comes with me. He's almost full-time now, but and so we'll both get to work doing groundwork, which is just like leg removal, just like prep work till you can hang them up.
Okay.
And then everything except for sheep, we'll start skinning them out on the ground, block them up so they're nice and all the same. Skin them out like that, hang them up on the winch, do a little more like technical prep work. And then the insides, like all the guts from beef, like a average size beef gut can fill a 55-gallon barrel.
Yeah.
So we'll empty the rumen on farm and just leave that big pile of grass. Depending on if they fed them the night before or that morning or when we showed up, determines that size. And then, load that into just a barrel, and then it goes in the front of the truck.
Okay.
And that gets picked up by a renderer, which I've heard about. He's told me where it goes, but I know it goes on a train car somewhere. Huh. And that's all I know about that.
some sausage plant.
I think it's like for mostly animal feed.
Yeah, I imagine it is. I know there's a couple feed yards that will refeed the paunch off of from one of the big Tyson plants. They'll just all that rumen fluid they'll just recycle.
Really?
Yeah, it's
really
awful smelling stuff, but it's it makes sense. It's in the rumen, so it's not digested. And
and I've heard of like people with sick cattle like needing like that rumen fluid, and like you're supposed to give it to them like it's apple cider vinegar or whatnot, and it like cures them. So I wonder if there's something there.
I wonder. I don't guess I've heard that one before, but that's interesting. So do you do just mostly just beef and hogs and lamb? Like, do you do chickens and stuff, or?
No poultry, beef, pork, lamb. I used to do a ton of alpaca.
Really?
Oh yeah. that was like my bread and butter for like 2.5 years.
Really?
I was the alpaca guy.
We were talking about this the other day. I don't forget who I was talking about it with, but I've never ate alpaca. I've never heard of anybody eating alpaca, but I assumed somebody had at some point because I was listening to a book on like the Arizona Indian wars fighting the Apache today, and those Apache, like they would eat beef and goats and sheep and whatnot, but like their favorite was mule, burro, and horse. Like that's what they. And they weren't really a horse tribe. They preferred to just move around on foot. So if they were stealing horses, it was strictly to eat them. But I've never heard of anybody eating an alpaca. But have you tried it?
Oh yeah. So the people are always like talking to me about alpacas and llamas, and I'll always tell them like alpacas just like eating like black-tailed deer or super lean beef. Usually we just grind it.
Yeah.
Make burger out of it. I fed it to folks and they had no idea like it wasn't ground beef. It pound for pound the same thing. But llama tastes like greasy old State Fair corn dogs.
Oh,
and it's gross.
I bet. That's
I don't know what the difference is, but it's nasty.
So was there just a bunch of people like with old llamas that need put down, or like were they breeders or what?
That's actually kind of interesting. So here, especially in the Pacific Northwest, in like the late 90s, there was a huge alpaca industry, right when like the tech industry took off.
Oh, okay.
These like tech folks started buying up big swaths of land. And they were like, well, we don't want cows, like, and so they just bought a ton of alpaca and like started showing alpacas and for their fleece. And then mid 2000s, the bottom fell out of that market. So there were all these like high dollar alpacas that were worth nothing.
Huh.
So they get old, and then what do you do with them?
Yeah.
And so people were getting them for these customers that I was doing them for were getting them for free. And then it's also a non-amenable. So you can slaughter it custom and sell it per pound retail.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Like there's some gray areas there, but yeah, so like some of the stuff I would slaughter would end up being sold on farm like as 1 pound packages as opposed to like a quarter or a half.
Huh. What's the ribeye like on an alpaca?
Think about like the leanest deer, if you've ever seen like a deer skinned out.
Yeah.
Leanest deer you've ever skinned, and then like a neck that long. that it just like makes a big U when you cut the head off. Because there's that big tendon there that holds the head up when they're alive. So when they're dead, and you hang them by the hind legs, they're like this, and you cut that head off and it goes boop.
Huh. That's wild.
Yeah, they're strange. Super strange. And have you ever heard the noises they make?
Yeah.
Yeah, like dinosaur noises.
Yeah, pretty well. And they're a rumen animal, aren't they?
Yes. But they're a camelid. So like they're in the camel family. I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works, but I think they got a ruminant digestive system. So
yeah, they've got a big paunch.
Yeah.
I just don't know much about them other than that. They're woolly, and if you've never heard 2 alpacas or 2 llamas fighting, that's something you need to look up on YouTube because all they try to do is bite each other's testicles off.
Really?
That's what they do.
I mean that's how you know they're serious, I guess.
Yeah. Breeding rights apparently.
I suppose so. They that's wild. Well, and they got the neck. They could probably reach around there. It's I
guess. So yeah, alpacas were a weird one that I've done a lot of. I still do yak every once in a while.
Really? That's some greasy shit, ain't it?
It's just tough. It's like skinning. It's like working on an elk with hair that's really long and tough, and they're wild. They're a wild animal. They chuff,
Huh.
They make really weird noises. And then the odd buffalo here and there. But same kind of bird.
Yeah, that the hide on a buffalo is, God, that stuff is thick.
It's
And
just like, so that's the same thing as a yak too.
I would imagine. So I had a pair of custom boots that were water buffalo, and that stuff was, I mean, they got pretty hot in the summer, but that stuff was so thick.
Sure.
I mean, it was
Lasts
almost
a long time.
almost indestructible. It was wild stuff. But yeah, I had a friend of mine. He was part of, I forget, there's a Blackfoot or Crow, but he's a member of the tribe up in Montana, up by Great Falls, and he drew a buffalo tag here last year, I think, year before last maybe, and I traded him some mule deer, Kansas mule deer meat for Montana grass-fed buffalo. He got the better end of that deal, hands down.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're shooting a mule deer or a whitetail in the western half of Kansas, that thing has been eating nothing but just grain crops and alfalfa his whole life. So you might as well be eating just really lean beef.
Yeah, or like good lamb. Like
Yeah.
It might have a little flavor to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I had one of those buffalo steaks, and I cooked it pretty rare, just seared it good and hot on both sides, and that was it. And it was still, like, flavor was fine, I suppose, but it was just like chewing shoe leather.
Yeah.
Like cutting it against the grain, every bite made sure to cut it, against the grain, try to get it, tender as I possibly could, and it was still just, man, it was tough.
Same. So like with buffalo and yak, every time we work on them, I get my knives pretty sharp every morning, and I'll go out there and it's just like I've been dragging them on the concrete, and I always fight them and then go to the next stop, and it could be like a nice fed steer or pig, and it's like, oh no, they're sharp. They're just wickedly tough animals.
Huh. That's crazy. What's your process on sharpening your knives? Like, so what kind of, you use like the packing house steels?
So I'll use a steel during the day to just kind of keep the edge up. And the one I use, like I have in some of the pictures you can see, I have it on my belt. And all it really is just like, there's no coarseness to it. It's just a piece of magnetized steel.
Okay.
It's smooth. But in the morning, I use one of those like little belt sharpeners, and just go over my knives with that, depending on how bad I was to them the day before, how many teeth I hit with them.
Yeah.
Today, go ahead.
It depends on the time of year and how shitty the cattle are that we get. But I necropsy, probably 8 out of 10 of the ones that we have when they die. And we don't, I mean, it's been like a week since we've had it dead. So it's, not a whole lot, but I worked at a big feed yard where we were, I think I posted 23 of them in a day one time. That was the biggest day I've had. That was a lot of work. Boy, if you don't touch your knives up like in between, like even like mid steer, like that, by the time you get 3 or 4 of them done, like that thing is like you might as well use it as a club at that point because there's no edge.
It's like painful.
Yeah, it's especially like you get some of the bigger cattle where the joints have started to calcify a little bit on the ribs.
Yeah.
Holy shit! Like you're better off with just tree trimmers at that point.
Totally. And like the old cows, I found we had some. I posted the heads on my story, but those longhorns that we did, they hang at like 300 pounds, but they're all horns.
Yeah.
And they're just like trying to skin cardboard. Like,
oh, I bet.
It's not a lot of fun to work on, but still pays.
Yeah, those longhorns, they look impressive until you see the shoulders back, and it's just nothing but frame.
Yeah, Longhorn, Coriani, and Highland, like I could leave them.
I've never seen a Highland all skinned out, so I'd imagine there's not much there either, huh?
You ever seen a Jersey?
Mm,
You've
not
seen
hanging.
Holstein.
Yeah, I've seen
I know
a
you've seen
Holstein hanging.
Holstein.
We've got a few jerseys, but I've never seen one hanging though. So, uh, but I've
For
seen
the
a.
most part, they look like a dairy
Okay,
cross.
okay, yeah, I've seen one Longhorn steer that they finished out, the actual finish weight, and he was still super lean, but I mean, he had like about a 2-inch fat cap, but like nothing in the muscle. I mean, it was,
Dang.
yeah. I mean, he had a lot of back fat, but there was nothing in the muscle. There was no marbling at all.
That's one thing I wish I could convey to my customers, because you got to think any given day I'm dealing with anywhere from like 1 to 5 people that I might see once a year, twice a
Yeah,
year, and this is like their animal crop for the
yeah,
year. And a lot of them are like, "Oh, I'll talk to them." And be like, "Yeah, I got some Angus." And come out there, and I'll go out there and see them, and like those are Angus crossed with Jersey. Like
yeah.
there's a big difference.
Oh yeah,
And people be like, "They're dual purpose." I'm like, yeah,
kind of. Yeah, but
kind
no.
of. It's not going to be bad, but it's not going to be like what you think you're getting.
No,
Yeah.
and like a Holstein eats really good if you spend the time and money to actually feed them out. But it takes
Totally.
a while. But they marble really good. They're just a pain in the dick because they're massive by that point. I mean, you're like 1,600 pounds if you don't get one of like the good Holsteins that
Right.
have more of a fat face than the rest of them. Those feed out pretty good, but the ones with the great big long face, it's just nothing but hip bones and hide.
Well, yeah, because you got to think they bred them to be high up off the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and all that energy they're eating is not going into meat production.
No,
For
it's
the
going
most part.
straight to the mammaries, and
Yeah.
yeah, and they don't. I mean, they marble eventually, and they've got it. They've got yeah, the dairy guys are on the ball with their genetics. I mean, they got way behind the ball on their bulls because they've only bred for cow disposition. The bull they didn't really give a shit. And next thing you
Right.
know, the bulls are just awful to deal with. I mean,
Dangerous.
yeah, and the cows are just dumber than shit. And so it seems like they've made a little bit more move to introduce some newer genetics, but then they figured out, hey, if you just cross them with a beef cow or beef bull, then you don't even have to worry about changing the Holstein genetics. You just
Right.
get a little bit of marbling with it, and those you see a ton of those Angus Holstein crosses being fed nowadays, and it probably not quite half the time it takes them to feed out, but probably knock a solid third of the
Right.
days on feed out, and they still marble really well. But they I got what's the outside the yaks and the longhorns, what's the worst to deal with, either any species?
Boars and sows. I had I got bit. Have you ever heard of American guinea hog?
No, I know
So
virtually nothing about the hog industry, so
you might as well just keep it that way because it's in pigs. American guinea hogs, they're kind of like a potbelly pig, but they're not a potbelly pig because they're not pets, but they're like fully finished and like finished out and fat, like with 1.5 inches of fat over their back. They're like 150 alive.
Oh, okay.
They're tiny. So like the whole hanging thing is like, 2.5 feet long. But they're easier on pasture because that's a big thing up here is pasture raised pigs.
Pasture-raised pigs, yeah.
Yeah, so mud fields. And I mean, there's people that do it right, but mud fields is pretty common too.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I can
so
imagine.
they're just little things, but this customer of mine had this American guinea hog boar that she wanted me to come out and kill. And guinea hogs are generally like really sweet temperament. Like they're, like you can get in with them. They're not wild. They're pretty friendly. They're just like, you can scratch them like a dog.
Yeah.
She had this boar, and he was probably 300 pounds, like live. So for a guinea hog, pretty good
Pretty
size.
big size, yeah.
Yeah, for like, that's your standard market hog for the most part.
Like 250 to 300 is what you're shooting for there, isn't it?
Totally. So he was about, card table long and half a card table wide.
Okay.
Just a little brick. And I walked, and they didn't clip his teeth. So in pigs, they grow these bottom teeth that are the tusks. And when they're piglets, they'll usually clip them so they don't get into fights and stuff like that. Well, they never clipped his teeth, and so they continue to grow up through the top of their mouth. That's why you'll see, like, wild pigs and stuff have those weird wrinkles on the top lip.
Yeah.
Because the tusks come out, and there's another set of teeth up there that are the sharpening teeth. So when they close their mouth, they self-file that tooth down, and it's flat.
Okay. Huh.
But that flat edge on the edge of it is just like obsidian. It's razor sharp, ivory.
Wow.
Essentially. So anyhow, this big boy was in his pen, and I went up and I was scratching on him, and he was eating sunflower seeds and plenty happy. And I walked around to his side, and he thought I was coming for his sunflower seeds, and just whack, that quick. And I had a boar tusk go 1.5 inches into my thigh.
Oh shit!
Yeah, just started bleeding, and it was only 4 stitches, but the Q-tip that she took it to clean that wound out was in there a long ways.
Holy shit! I bet that hurt like a motherfucker.
Yeah, it was not great. But
how far from your femoral artery?
For what?
How far from the artery was it?
No, I think it was a little ways off, but I didn't really care to ask the lady.
Yeah. Don't even want to know.
It wasn't even like, it didn't hurt that bad. It just bled a lot.
Yeah.
I cleaned it out with, what was that, betadine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And scrubbed it and didn't need any shots or anything. They just stitched it up and said it was good. And no problem since. Just a sweet scar.
I had the same type of deal, except it was all my own fault. I was cutting an abscess it was right on like the elbow. And the way our chute is set up, like you have to back them out of the head catch and try to squeeze them real hard. But it's an old wore out silencer, and so once those cylinders wear out, they can just, they can flex and kind of push that squeeze out, the bottom squeeze.
Yep.
So I didn't want to run him through the chute. I just roped him in the pen and tied him down. And as I was tying him down, I stuck the scalpel in my back pocket, and then I made the slice, and then he kicked. So I went to make another wrap on the tie rope, put it back in my pocket. And then when I sat back, I didn't have the cap on it, and I shoved that thing, probably a solid inch into my ass cheek, and it was like real burning sensation right off the bat, and that was it. And then, but yeah, I stuck it through a pair of jeans, through my boxers. I think I still got that pair of boxers. They were pretty gnarly. Like it soaked all the way down my leg. Like I had caked blood at the bend of my knee by the time it was all said and done.
Nice.
It was pretty gnarly. Well, it wasn't as cool a story as yours, but it bled probably just as much.
My dumbass was in there in shorts, so his shorts and rubber boots, and he got me right on the back of the shorts. And it's stupid.
That's fun. I guess being a mobile slaughter guy, like as long as you're there to show up and kill an animal and put it in somebody's freezer, they don't give a shit what you're wearing. You could probably wear like the Borat swimsuit and
pretty much.
I mean, I guess in Portland, they probably wouldn't even look twice at you.
I mean, I used to just wear, those what do they call those? Like athletic shirts. And I just cut the sleeves off of them for summertime and be in khaki shorts and boots, and I just don't really give a shit. I'm not there to look cool. I'm trying to be comfortable, do my work.
Well, that's kind of one of those things. Like I was looking at your bio and just said mobile slaughterman. And I was like, that's pretty handy. Like that was the first thing I was like, that's a good service. Like, and then it crossed my mind today. And then when you said something, it kind of brought it back up. Yeah, like nobody really gives a shit as long as you get that animal out of their way and get it at the packing house. They probably just don't give a shit.
Totally. Well, and like, so I'm friends with a group of guys, like, pen pal internet friends.
Yeah.
With a group of guys that are mobile slaughter guys all over. So
Nice.
Australia, New Zealand, Southern California, and on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, all over. And they're like, they're the kind of guys that really care about their job and like are passionate about it. But a lot of like the local mobile slaughter options are there's a special breed of people.
A bunch of bubbas.
Yeah, and like I've met a bunch of them that are just like into drugs. Like meth is a big one because more meth you do, the more cows you can kill. So might as well. And these days aren't easy, so so as long as you're like not on meth, show up on time, and like halfway personable, you probably figure this job out. But I don't want to tell people that.
So what percentage of these meth addicts that run mobile slaughterhouses, what percentage of them do you think were bull haulers at one point?
I know one guy definitely off seasons driving truck. He doesn't say what he's hauling, but he's a pretty good dude though. But yeah, like just some of the rigs that like I can see on the road, they're just like all rusted out and like parts and pieces flying everywhere.
Please,
like, how do you get away with that?
Please look at me. Please draw your attention over here.
I know we got the company logo on the side of the truck a couple years ago, and I was like, I don't like this at all. Like I was good with white box truck.
Yeah, that's pretty genius. It's it's like what all the like the undercover cops and stuff would drive is just something unassuming that you see all the time. And so yours is like basically just a beer truck, right? Without the refrigeration.
If you know what you're looking for, you can spot them. You see a box truck with a winch on the back. Yeah, that's mobile slaughter truck. I didn't have the logo on it at one point, and I was going through a small town, and this guy pulls up to me, and like it was like a Buick that was all like beat to shit, and he's like rolls down his window. He's like, "You're a mobile slaughter service," and I was like, "Yep." And he's like, "My dad did that." I bet. Cool.
Thanks, I guess.
Yeah. It is what it is. So that's the other thing is the variety of customers I deal with is insane.
I bet.
So if most people don't know Portland unless you're from here, but there's this area called the West Hills, and this road that divides the West Hills from like the suburbs from the city called Skyline, and it's like where the Trailblazers have houses and
okay.
Yeah, it's like the nicest big houses with the best view.
It's where like all 9 of the black people in Portland live. No comment from the mobile butcherman.
This guy's got to keep busy.
Yeah, that's true. I can piss off who I want. You can't. So anyhow,
Right.
that's a joke about how all these Black Lives Matter protests riots have been going on for 90 days in Portland, and there's like 9 black people that live in Portland, maybe 10, maybe 10
more.
Yeah,
They've all been pushed out.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that. I was really considering making a tinfoil hat and like having it ready to go.
Oh, perfect.
To, like, put on.
I love me some conspiracies.
Yeah. So Skyline Boulevard.
Yes.
So I got a call for this person up there, and I went up and I pull in the address, and it's like mansion house. The driveway is like hand set pavers in a mosaic.
Oh.
And like out in the back is this Jersey cow, like, this milking cow, and I'm like, that I don't know. And the lady comes out, and I think she was Korean. Yeah. Anyhow, her and her husband were doctors.
They all look the same. It's okay.
Her and her husband were doctors at the teaching hospital in town. And they had this Jersey cow that they didn't want to milk anymore. And so I butchered her on that mosaic tile driveway, and she was ecstatic about it. She thought that was so cool. And it was just everything from that all the way down to like giant hogs being fed like food scraps out the kitchen window in a mud hole. And I have to back my truck through piles of trash. And everything in between. So
that's wild.
It's pretty wild.
That's
like
wild.
I've got a couple of customers up that are like right next to Phil Knight's house, the guy that CEO of Nike, and like just stuff like that you're like, I don't want to look anywhere, I don't want to touch anything, because dear God, let me not miss.
Yeah, no shit, because there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
So being Portland is making a run for the most liberal shithole city in the country. Like they're making a pretty good case for it.
Mm-hmm.
You could put them right up there with like San Francisco, LA, New York. They're right along the same lines. So I'm sure you get your share of vegan activists or animal rights people that. How much of an issue is that for you?
It was funny that, like, my first year of business, before I had done any, like, logos, anything like that, I was just getting up and rolling, and they just searched some things and found where my truck was and put bleach in the diesel tank. And we got a call from the FBI asking us how the truck was running, and we said fine. Like, for back then it was this old clapped out 12 valve Cummins that was like running like shit anyhow. So
you put dump bacon grease down that though, and it'll do just fine.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, and then we got a call like 4 or 5 days later from the sheriff, and he was like, you guys need to check your diesel tanks. And I dipped them, and I was like, that's not just diesel. Something's in there. And all the inside was rusted out. That was really about it. I used to get some hate on Instagram, but I think Instagram kind of figured an algorithm out that haven't had dealt with anything, which has been awesome. So, because I'd leave it public and everything like that. So,
yeah, I noticed like it's like 1 out of 5 of your videos gets covered up. Seems like, but it's a weird thing being in the ag business on social media. Like when they just want to censor everything, but people get so sensitive about animals. Yeah, and I had an abscess video got blocked off of TikTok of all places the other day. Like it
really
stayed up on YouTube and Facebook, and it didn't even get covered up, but TikTok wouldn't even let me post it. And TikTok's got a great algorithm because it's a lot of stupid shit until like it figures out what you're watching, and then like my newsfeed's awesome on that. Like it's
gold.
Yeah, just nothing but hilarious shit. And it's kind of just wide open.
Yeah, there's everything on there. I'm like 2 weeks into the TikTok rabbit hole, My girlfriend got me on it, and I was like, I'm not like 13. And she was like, just do this. And I started finding it. I was like, oh, this is all about like diesels and cows. This is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I've got like a bunch of comedians and a bunch of cowboys, and that's and guns. Like that's
Sure.
there's all
Sure.
that. And I don't know, like, and then there's like the big argument of whether China's stealing all of our data. Well, of course they are. But so is Google, and so is Facebook, and so is the government, by the way. So I don't know. I don't.
Heard.
Yeah, China's gonna get it one way or the other. I at that point I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's I like it because they're, for the most part, it seems like they're pretty strongly free speech, and I like that aspect, because I mean I see a whole bunch of liberal hippie bullshit on there. I see a whole bunch of super Trump conservative shit, and then a whole lot of other stuff in between that's none of it is just
right.
funny stuff or cool shit. And I don't know, that it seems like it's kind of like Twitter was back in the day before everybody got really angry about everything on Twitter. But yeah, but that was the only platform that censored my abscess video, which was surprising. I figured it would have been Facebook first, and then like 2 months from now,
right.
Instagram will be like, oh wait, that's not cool. But
or just like put the cover on it, which I always find is funny that they don't show it. Like when I look at my own profile, it doesn't show which ones are covered.
Really?
I don't care, but it'd just be nice to know.
Yeah.
You know, like what are they after?
I
have to say though. Go ahead.
I know they censored the one of your lamb heads the other day. They covered that one up, which,
fair enough,
understandable. It's not a picture for the faint of heart, but it is what it is.
The one that I always like find interesting is I'll get people commenting on stuff like the world needs to see this, like everybody needs to see this. Like, yeah, but they don't need to be surprised by it.
No,
because that doesn't do us any favors.
No, I view that same way I view the open carry activists. Like, yeah, you have a right to do that. Yes, you do. But should you? Probably not.
Yeah.
You're not helping your cause by just open carrying an AR to a random rally. Like, you're just scaring people at that point. And if that's what you're trying to go for, that's fine. But you're also not furthering the cause for open carry. Same way by just, like, if you don't put some sort of caption or something. Like, I'm okay with like the covering up of, say, like, this should be, or this is sensitive material. But then, of course, like every left-wing thing that starts out with good intentions, it gets taken to the extreme where, like, you just have, you know, somebody saying abortion is murder or something like that, then they like cancel it,
block it out.
Yeah, block it out, or they'll say false information or something. And so it's like, it's all those, you know, most of those left-wing deals start out with good intentions and like a pretty decent proposal behind it, and then they get, you know, just blown way out, like all the way to left field.
Yeah. I try to feel like whenever I'm doing stuff, because like on Instagram, that's the only place I put my work stuff. I try not to put too much personal stuff on there, but I try to do stuff to like further the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's got to be like everything from like the small producer that maybe has 2 a year to the guys like I've got some people scheduled here this week that they're doing 50 hogs this year and like 20 some beef, which for one organization is pretty good.
That's a lot of meat being
and that's all custom. Like,
yeah,
they're dealing with those people, and we're just acting as the service in between.
And I'm guessing they've got really high quality animals, because otherwise they wouldn't, or at least they have decent quality, because otherwise they wouldn't have the volume that they're putting out.
Right. So there's like, I try to give people, I get all pissy and grumpy and like big ag, I guess like educated, that's not the right word, like conventionally done.
Yeah.
I get kind of grumpy about how some of the people do it. And like one of these customers is like, they tossed 20 some beef out and like they're like, oh, they're pasture raised and like we're just gonna leave them out in this pasture, and it was like an old fescue field, so it's like lawn grass.
Yeah.
They're like, they're not growing. It's like, it's fescue field.
Yeah. There's you can maintain them all day long, but that's it.
Right. It's like iceberg lettuce. Like,
Yeah.
you can't grow on iceberg lettuce.
No.
But it's better now, and I have to remember that not everybody comes at it from the background of guys like you and I.
Yeah.
And that there are different ways of doing it. Doesn't make it wrong. So I get like, and their quality has definitely gone up. And I think some of that's to do with they've started getting nicer like feeder animals that they're throwing out there. And some of it's to do with like the pastures are just better now too. They're getting more wild grass pasture mix stuff in there. So everything from that to like one of my main customers that I go to runs a cow-calf operation that's got a feedlot on site, and they just sell custom stuff here and there, and they're doing them either grain or grass finished, and they've got everything in between. So I have to be a little more like flexible in what I think is right, I guess.
Yeah.
And try to like push it all as, instead of like pushing grass-fed or grain finished or organic, non-organic, non-GMO, all that stuff, just pushing locally sourced, direct to farmer. Like that's my jam.
I like it. And like I'm not a grass-fed guy. I don't prefer the taste. I think it's stringy, it's tough and gamey.
I think most people are like that.
Yeah, and that's me personally, but if that's your deal, like it's big money. If you can do it right, it's big money.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're all trying to get people to eat beef, or at least in my industry. And it's a better deal for everybody involved if you can buy it local. Like if the market's shitty like it has been for the last year on the cattle side of things, unless you're like a corporate owned feedlot where you can play the margins and sell on the formula, you're probably not making much money. You're actually probably losing money, but you can kind of cut in that by marketing a few of your own local, and then the customer gets to know where their animal comes from, the people that are taking care of it, and the cowman gets box beef prices on his own cattle, and and you don't have to go through the whole process of getting legislation passed through to make it stamped, born, raised, and slaughtered in the U.S. No, you can put that there by your own choice because it is, and you can stand by your own product. And it's and I get when you're running hundreds or thousands of mama cows, you can't do that for all of them, but you can do a little bit here and there. Eventually, if you've got a good product and stand by it, people will buy it. And it's a lot of people, they you find out that they're getting the whole package of beef for about the price of a package of hamburger that you buy in the grocery store. They'll like, hey, I may not do that this year, but I'll save up and I can get one next year. And and then if they like it, they just come back because it's convenient, it's easy, and it's about a wash as far as price goes, or cheaper. And it's just a good thing all the way around. But
that's the interesting thing about this area too, and even the Western Oregon, Western Washington, is that we don't have, like, I can think of, out of my customer, like my Rolodex of however many people, I can think of 2 for sure, maybe 3 of them that ever even ship fed cow, ever.
Okay.
Everything else is all direct to consumer. And so it's interesting, like, I feel for those guys on the other side of the mountains that have all these animals and have to like be the price takers and not the price makers. And I wish there was a way to help them, which they're like this, what the butcher shop sells that I work for or a contract for, is a big beef co-op. So they get to make prices, but you know, there's a lot of guys still getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah. So I guess going back to, you said you were federally inspected there for a while.
Yeah.
And so how much cheaper is it for you to just go with a state inspection versus a federal?
So when I worked under federal inspection, it was actually at Oregon State University on campus. There they have a slaughterhouse on campus, which you know, Lane at college, a lot of them did. So I learned there, and then I went up and worked on a federally inspected mobile slaughter service that in the San Juan Islands up in Northwest Washington. So it goes like up in those islands right next to Canada. And that's kind of where I got like my skill set. And then the truck that I run now it's only custom exempt. So the difference between the two is like night and day. Basically like the difference of someone raising animals in their backyard versus like a feedlot.
Yeah.
So like under the federal inspection stuff, you have to have your grant of inspection, you have to have a HACCP plan, all these other like documents that are basically an assurance to end buyer at the grocery store, farmer's market, stuff like that, that you could like rip that package open and take a bite out of the raw product and you'd be okay.
Yeah.
Although they say to like cook it. Whereas, so and like the animals have to like, they have to die on concrete. They have to be bled out on concrete. They can't touch dirt once they're dead. They go inside of basically a semi-trailer to do all the slaughter process. And it's just like a little kill floor inside the back with a cooler. And it's basically just a traveling slaughterhouse. Whereas I'm more of just a traveling meat box. All the process and everything I do is outside, and the elements and the dirt and whatnot. So it's up to me to keep that product clean and safe for consumption.
Okay.
So just, yeah.
So I'm pretty big on the libertarian end of the spectrum, where I think regulations, a lot of them, like the left-wing stuff, a lot of regulations have good intent, trying to keep people safe and whatnot. But on this, then, say like the Prime Act gets enacted tomorrow, and so like your butcher shop no longer has to be federally inspected to sell retail. You know, it just it's a free for all. You have a very strong incentive to keep that animal clean, to keep that carcass clean, to do everything the right way so that people keep coming back or keep calling you back out there. Like it's not so much that you have to do it, but if you want to keep your clientele, you probably better do it.
Yeah, I've done a lot of thinking on the Prime Act too, because if that passed, like that stands to make me a lot of money.
Yeah,
like triple, quadruple my business overnight. And I'm still kind of on the fence about it. Not as like personally, like I trust myself and I trust the people that work for me and around me, but I've seen how a lot of like custom butcher shops do business and go about that kind of thing. And I'm also, I would say, on the libertarian end of things, and the federally inspected one is one that I'm like, I don't want to say I'm okay with it because I got a lot of issues with it, but I'm glad it's there. Just because I've had to work under the eyes of those guys, the FSIS, the food safety guys, that are government employees, which I'll be the first one to say I've seen plenty of them reading newspapers in their office during working hours. Like, That's its own set of things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they have like things that they have to do to assure quality end product and to assure humane handling, which is a whole nother can of worms. I'm glad for it. Yeah, I'm still conflicted on it. That's kind of where I'm at. I think it can be done right, but I also think that it's going to get taken advantage of, and people are going to get sick or die. I hate saying that, but
I think you're right, and I'm a big proponent of it. But I also think even with these federal inspections, there's people that get sick and die every year.
Totally.
Due to it. So I think that and every time there is like a beef recall from E. coli or hell even produce especially Salmonella E. coli, those companies get lit the fuck up, not just in the media but social media, everywhere, and they take a hit for a good while after that. And I think that'll be even more pronounced on a local level. You know how those the local Facebook groups operate.
Oh, yeah.
You get somebody that gets sick, or they get like the wrong animal brought back to them. Like I see it all the time, just with custom deals. And yeah, those businesses get lit the fuck up. And I think the market pressure, especially on your food, is going to be so strong that there will be some people that take advantage of it, and there probably will be some people that get sick and die. But I think that will be exposed so quickly that those people will be run out of business or sued for all they're worth. And it's
totally.
I think there's going to be a definite transition period, but I don't know.
Yeah.
People always work in their best interest, regardless of how selfless they are. I mean, there's very few people that don't do something in their own self-interest. So there's enough of a of a market incentive to be clean, efficient, humane, all that good stuff. And yeah, I think there could be a little rough patch getting going, but main thing is federal government makes a ton of money off all that shit. So that's why it's not going anywhere anytime soon. That's why I really don't have much faith that the Prime Act will get passed through. But like you said, I think it'd be a huge boom to the economy, especially on the independent producer side, because you're going to have a ton of local butcher shops all of a sudden not just doing custom slaughter, but actually actively trying to purchase their own to sell. So that's price discovery at its finest. Is when some guy's like, I need to fill my lockers, so I got to go find something.
I think there could be a happy medium of it too. How like with I don't know about what it is for other states, but Oregon, you can have a raw milk dairy, non-pasteurized, but you can only sell on farm. Yeah. And it can only be so much per year. I'm not real familiar with it. But even if you had something like that, where it's like you can sell at retail, but it's got to be on-farm sales, not to like I don't want to say unsuspecting public, because I think people are entitled to make their own choices and do their own information gathering. Yeah. But if you want to go to a farm and you can see the cows out there and say, I want to go buy some steaks from this guy, like walk up, knock on the door, and buy some out of the freezer, and not have that be a federal offense. Yeah. Because people are doing it. Yeah. They just don't care.
Exactly. Well, and I think there could even be a dual system, where you could still have your USDA inspectors. Yeah. But like, and say it's like your local butcher shop that says, well, I'm not spending all that money, but post it everywhere when, like, hey, this is not a USDA inspected license or facility, whatever. And and I think
they already do it with chicken.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, when people see the price difference between that, they're like, well, if I can I'll try this guy, see what he's got, and if it's good, they'll was like, well, shit, he's way cheaper, so I'm just coming back here. And like I said, but at that point, the guy has the financial incentive to keep up the quality of his product, and that's where the market regulates it more than anything. Because and especially in the social media age, like I said, people will be real quick to blast out when somebody's fucking up. Like they're not afraid of that. Mm-hmm. And then that makes a big difference.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say how crazy it's been with the shift in purchasing habits from the beginning of the pandemic till now.
Oh yeah.
Not even till now, but like till the height, from the beginning to the height of it. When this all started was like, it was like beginning of March, which is usually my cool down, get stuff fixed, take care of project season. I'll work like 2 or 3 days a week, like 10 to 12-hour days, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, pandemic talk starts going on, and the way I've been referring to it is like when you put your foot to the floor on a diesel truck. Like, you know what's about to happen, and you can feel yourself going forward, but until you hit 2,500 RPM and hit that turbo, like,
mm-hmm.
And then May, June, July hit, and all of a sudden I was booked out almost 12 months.
Yeah.
From people buying local beef. One of my ranchers that I just was like I was doing 6 every 2 to 3 weeks for him started coming to me, and she was like, listen, I got 25 sold. When can we get them dead? Like, and just keep selling more custom, people going direct to the farmer. And I really hope that doesn't change.
I don't think it will.
Like the one guy on you had that direct to consumer podcast was talking about how when people go to the grocery store, they start just buying things to eat with their pot roast or with their burger. I'm hoping people get used to that and don't go back.
I think
because it's a cool thing to see.
Yeah, I think that's going to keep up. I mean, I think it'll lose a little bit of steam once. I mean, and it kind of did once you saw the meat cases fill back up.
Right.
But I don't think that's going away. I don't think I don't think that's ever fully going away. And that, like I said, that is a good thing. That's there's not been much good that has come out of this whole shit show, but that's one really good thing that has. And it's been refreshing to see, and it's really been cool on the producer side to see some really old school guys that have been set in their way for so long start to think, well, maybe I should sell. Like, I'm starting to get a bunch of calls for selling some beef, and they're like, well, shit, I'm making more money than I would taking them to the sales, so I'll just hold on to them and feed them, and somebody will buy them. That's the thing, is like, you'll have these big feedlots with nowhere to send their cattle, but I rarely ever hear of anybody having trouble getting rid of a fed steer on the local levels. I mean, I rarely, I don't know if I've ever heard of somebody like, I've got this steer that I got to get rid of.
That was one of the crazier things that happened too on my end of things, was that I had these customers that might have had small herds, and then were selling locally, and people started blowing up, and they were driving to the other side of the state, and so we're in Northwest Oregon, and they were driving to like Central Washington because the Tyson plant closed down, the IBP plant closed down, well, Washington Beef, they all closed down, and we're like, everybody was freaking out. So there were all these fed steers, and they were just picking them up for next to nothing.
Yeah.
As far as like cattle prices go, bringing them back and selling them custom, and just, they were doing really good. And I wish there would have been a little more, I don't want to say honesty towards the customers, but being like, hey, like, we're bringing these in. Yeah. This is the price for them. That's the deal. Instead of pushing them as, these are our grass-fed beef, or these are our locally raised.
Yeah.
But
it is.
It's not my place to pass judgment.
No, you're there to get them dead, get them skinned out, and get them to the
Totally.
butcher. Yeah, well, that's pretty
Totally.
cool. So, like, what brought you into this whole deal? Is that did your family do this, or just you saw an opening?
My parents were elementary school teachers, and I grew up in the city. And when I went to Oregon State, I was started in engineering and was terrible at math. So that doesn't work out so good.
No, that's kind of useful for engineering as math ability.
Yeah. Yeah. And truth be told, I'm glad I didn't go that route anyhow. So I just went like exploratory studies and took the animal science class. And in one of the first lab sections of that class, I was like shoulder deep in a steer with a fistula. And so like reaching into the rumen and like trying to find the feed trial sac. And I was just hooked on cattle from
Hell
then.
Yeah.
And tried to get a job at the university ranch, and they didn't need help, and I had no ranching skills. So my advisor was like, they got an opening at the slaughterhouse for the cleanup kid. And I was like, I'll take it. And so I started cleaning it up after kill and cutting days. And then a year later, I was running the slaughter floor, and the rest just like took off from there. People are always like, oh, you just do slaughter all day. But I don't like the killing part. Like, I like doing a good job with that and making sure it's humane and quick and efficient.
Mm-hmm.
But like just the actual process of like how I go about my work and the pride I take in a clean animal and like a nice looking carcass, that's what I love.
Yeah.
And
there's a satisfaction when you hit them, like when you hit them just right and all four legs buckle and they just like
totally.
My job's done. Well, and then, like that animal didn't suffer a bit, and that's
not only that, but like when you go into a herd of 30 and you got to shoot 6, and you can shoot 6 without stirring the whole herd up or pushing them through a fence, and they are still standing there.
Yeah.
After that, you're like, this is about as humane as it gets.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're just curious as to what's happening.
Yeah.
So those are the moments I take real pride in, like the livestock handling, and like I can do this job and have these other animals around and nobody freaked out. Like, no idea.
Yeah. Well, and that's, this one thing I don't think I've ever brought up on the podcast before, and that I'm kind of kicking myself for it now, but I know there's some folks out there that listen that I've never heard that, like, how you handle the cattle or lamb, pig, whatever, how you handle it has a direct correlation to how or what the quality of the meat is. So
100%.
And even in these big packing plants, the guys that are just ramming and jamming and just shoving a hot shot everywhere, like those guys don't last very long because those lead to dart cutters. So when you have an excited animal, agitated animal, it creates a buildup of lactic acid in the muscle, and you get like the dark purple, like game meat color on beef. And you don't want that unless you're doing a grass fed, because that's the natural color. It's a darker.
Well, the pH doesn't drop during the rigor mortis process properly. And
so
they end up not being able to hold water when you cook it.
Yeah, so it's a dark, dry cut of meat, and it's just tough. So so all those people that get the idea that we're just like bloodthirsty animals getting them to kill, it's not the case at all. You want them to move quickly and efficiently, but you want them quiet. You don't
slower is faster.
Exactly. It's an old saying, and it rings true all the time. Like if you just step back, relax, and slow down a little bit, your cattle move more efficiently, not faster, but the overall process is faster because they're moving efficiently. So
you got to give them time to let them think.
Yeah. So instead of trying to jam 30 of them through the gate at one time and it taking 10 minutes, you can back up and let 5 of them through the gate at one time, and you can go 5 of them 30 seconds at a time, and you're there for 3 minutes instead of 10. And so it's not, you're not doing anything to make them go faster except slowing down yourself. And that has a direct impact on the quality of the meat. And so like even like you can get really good beef at the grocery store. Most of your beef at the grocery store, I don't care if it's American beef or imported beef, it's good beef because it's been inspected hundreds of times. And so like those even the big kill plants, they stress animal handling because it relates to their bottom line. Okay, so that goes back to the market incentive. There's an incentive for them to be humane because it produces a better carcass, which brings a better price and a happier customer.
That's also one thing I've always been a proponent of big agriculture, big livestock too.
Yeah.
Because that's what I grew up on. Like, we didn't buy fancy bougie local beef when I was a kid. Like, we went to it wasn't Walmart, but the same idea in my neighborhood. And that's what I grew up on and like grew on. So those guys have a place in the industry just as much as the locavore types. Yeah. And whether you think it's because they feel like they need to do it the right way, or because of regulation and government oversight, or just because they're trying to watch their bottom line and maximize profits, if an animal's not stressed out through the process, what's it matter?
Yeah, who gives a shit?
They have huge incentive in like the fines and all the regulations that come with federal inspection for inhumane handling. The U.S. government is really good at putting inhumane slaughter practices on blast publicly. They post a dossier every so often that lists the plant name, the offense, and like a detailed account of the offense to the public.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got good reason to not screw up.
Yeah, and it's also a better reason to not take these PETA videos seriously, because
totally
they will cherry pick like literally months of footage and splice different scenarios together to make one clip to make it look as bad as possible.
People just assume this is all happening in the States when I've seen a lot of them, and it's like, that's not in the U.S. Like, I know that's not in the U.S.
Yeah.
You know? And we've got no control over that.
No. And, and PETA, for all their faults, and like, it's basically all faults that they have, they're very good at getting their message out. I mean,
totally.
You can't take that away from them. They are good at it. But I think there's enough word out there now that, hey, PETA's full of shit. That's one thing that we can do more of on the agriculture land, instead of just getting up in arms about the latest video that makes somebody look bad. You can go right to what PETA does, and very little of it is helping animals, and that's all public knowledge. So rather than attacking the video, attack them themselves, like their actual practices, and then when you get into that, it doesn't make the video of a poor Mexican guy kicking a Holstein calf in the head because he won't suck a damn bottle, even though he's been trying for 2.5 fucking hours. You get a little pissed off when that happens. You're trying to save this damn thing, and he is actively fighting you to die.
Right.
And it's, it shouldn't happen. Not condoning it, but I've been in that scenario. I've been the guy in that video. There's no context behind it, but you don't even have to stand up for that guy. You can just say, hey, that's, that shouldn't happen.
Right.
I understand it. It shouldn't happen. But this organization that's putting out this video, look how much money they actually spend helping animals. No, they'll pay Joaquin Phoenix, $1 million to make a video looking like a fish drowning. But how many animals do they save? 0.
Right.
And
the
you
one
can,
that cracked
you can
me
point
up
out that
was not even a PETA thing. I was going to bring this up earlier, was when they was it ABC went after, was it IBP for the pink slime?
Yeah, it was BPI, Beef Products.
BPI, lean.
I worked for BPI. I interned for them one summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was the master of the pink slime for about 3 months.
I think that's awesome because I mean, it sucks that, like, truthfully, it sucks that they're not even using it anymore because people don't realize that to, like, make up that deficit in ground beef, like,
Yeah.
more animals are having to be butchered.
You know, and that's another deal is that directly led to the importation of beef too.
Yep. Yep.
Because the BPI had this so for all those unaware, we'll end on this little note. But so BPI is Beef Products International. They're out of, I think, Sioux Falls, Iowa, and mostly they were their own little section on, like, all your major packing plants. BPI had a little section just off to the side, and all they did was they took in excess fat and trimmings, lean trimmings and they took them in from everywhere. I know I was at the Tyson in Holcomb, Kansas. So that's about a 6,000 head a day slaughter plant. BPI took in trimmings from the Tyson there, took trimmings from Tyson and Amarillo. They took Dodge City, couple different plants. They took in trimmings from everywhere. They mixed it with their percentage of fat, and they partially cooked it, made it into these little pellets, flash froze it, and that got mixed in with regular hamburger for different restaurants. So at one point, 80% of the ground beef in the U.S. contained this stuff. They called pink slime because that's kind of what it looked like coming out of the tubes into where it got flash frozen. And then they either made
LFTB.
Yep. Finely textured lean beef or something like that.
Yep.
Lean, finely textured beef. That's what it is. And so it was either in a pellet or like like a Czech cereal type square, depending on the customer. I signed an NDA at one point. Whatever. I don't even know if they're in business, but anyhow, and they would blast it with ammonia to kill E. coli, and but I was quality assurance as an intern, so like I had 8 or 9 different stations I had to check every hour, and then like 2 or 3 stations that I had to check like a couple times per shift. And so you had to check the line of the beef coming in and check for the quality of the meat. You had to check the temperature of the floor. You had to check the temperature of the product. You had to check the level of the fat versus the lean, the tallow versus the lean. There's a bunch of different stuff you had to check. And it was all fine and good. Like they had it down to a science. They had it down to assembly line efficiency. And there was this story that came out, and they called it pink slime because that's what a USDA inspector called it, because that's kind of what it looked like. Because it looked like hamburger, but not really, because it was really lean. There was very little fat to it, and they used that to take like a 75-25 mix of hamburger up to like a 90-10. And so you would blend it just to make your percentages how you wanted it. That was all it was.
And it dropped the temp of like big commercial grinds.
Yeah.
Which was always a good thing for the packing house too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's frozen.
Mm-hmm. And but yeah, because of that, they got slandered in the media for what, like 2 months straight, something like that.
Because people thought they were spraying it with Windex.
No, it was commercial grade ammonia, and it was at acceptable. Like, as soon as that ammonia level got above what was accepted, there was a alarm that went off through the whole plant. They could hear it on the Tyson side of the plant, and like everything shut down. Like, you did not put excess ammonia into the beef. Like it was a big deal when that alarm went off. I mean, you saw people scurrying to get shit done. And but
Right.
they got drugged through the mud because that's what the fucking media does. And they laid off like something like 120 people at that plant. It was after, I mean, that all came out after I was there, but like they shut down that operation there at the Tyson plant. And that was like 120 people that worked there full time, just out of a job. And
Well, and the impact on excess, the deficit
yeah,
for all that stuff that was not having to be slaughtered because it was being utilized. Now, where's that going to come from? You
yeah,
know?
exactly. So they had to import a bunch of beef because the way we feed cattle here, we feed them to marble and to be fatty. That's how we do it because it tastes better. I mean, whatever. If you're a grass beef guy, sorry, whatever. It just that's what people want, and because of that, we have an excess of fat that can be used for different things. But the most profitable way is to put it back into lean cuts of meat, grind it, make hamburgers because hamburger sells all the time, all the time. Like you have a harder time selling a ribeye than you do 20 pounds of hamburger, and so to make up that difference, rather than make it into soap or something, we import a bunch of beef from Brazil, Argentina, Namibia,
Yep.
wherever, and we mix it with U.S. fat, and it gets labeled as product of the U.S., which is a little sketchy. I don't necessarily agree with it. But I also don't agree with the mandatory labeling deal either. That's a
Mm-hmm.
weird issue. I see both ends of it. I don't know if it makes that big of a difference, to be honest. But
Well, and like you said, there's always going to be ways around it,
they're
and leave it
every
to the
time.
federal government to screw up a good thing.
Yeah, and
Like,
exactly. And if they're gonna implement something, guarantee you those big four packers are gonna come knocking on a couple different senators and congressmen's door and like, hey,
yeah,
even if you have to pass this, you better put something in to where we can weasel our way around it. That's how crony
definitely.
capitalism works, fellas. But and hey,
Info
that's
hat.
yeah, exactly. That we'll get back on another day and talk about you know about how all that shit trickles downstream and whatnot. But it's been a fascinating conversation there, Andrew. Do you get called Andrew, Andy, whatever?
Whatever. Just don't call
What?
me late for dinner.
Perfect. Yeah, it's been fun. So you've been at it for like 10 years now?
Something like coming up on 11.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean in the industry, but yeah, running this business for 7.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's a cool deal. Is city kid gets to work with cows nowadays, and
It was the dream, and I'm kind of there. We'll get
yeah,
there full all the way someday.
yeah. One of these days you'll have your own cattle, marketing your own beef, and you'll be able to butcher them for people.
That's the idea. That's the
There you
goal.
go. There you go. American dream, baby.
That's right.
Hell yeah. Well, man, I appreciate the shit out of you coming on. And
You bet.
if where can everybody find you on I guess you're on Instagram only.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. At Farm Butcher. I don't post a whole lot, and I'll post a lot of random shit. So.
Uh, Pretty informative videos though. I like it. I really liked seeing your winch setup, just peeling a hog. No
Oh yeah.
biggie. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, if you're into seeing where your meat comes from and how it gets to your plate, he's a good one to go look, and it's just interesting. So at Farm Butcher on Instagram, you guys know where to find me, Matt McKinley, Facebook, at MakerMac85 on the rest of them. Move your ass for the show page and Burning Daylight on Facebook and YouTube. But I think that's going to do it for us. Y'all have a wonderful week. And Andrew, thanks for coming on. And
You
move
bet,
your
buddy.
ass. We're burning daylight. All right. We are